Hi, everybody. My name is Sophia Kogre. I'm an occupational therapy student at the University of Pacific, Sacramento campus. Um, I am currently working on my capstone project that is exploring the barriers that first generation college students are facing with utilizing mental health services on campus. So, this presentation is mostly to address those barriers and find some manageable solutions for some of the barriers. So first, some of the objectives that we will be discussing in this presentation is defining first generation college students and their unique challenges, identifying common mental health conditions, discussing personal, practical, psychological, and cultural barriers to accessing mental health care, and introducing the dimensions of wellness framework as a holistic supportive model. So first off, first generation college student. What is that? So that is a student who one or more parents did not earn a four-year college degree. So there are 5 million or 1 in 2 undergraduate students who are first generation. And this is a very diverse group of students. It varies between race, ethnicity, immigration, status, gender, etc. Majority first generation college students identify as non-white. So statistically, I believe it's 73% identify as non-white and 46% identify as white. And research shows that first gen students are reporting greater symptoms of distress and mental health disorders, but they're less likely to utilize psychological services that are on campus. So I just want to explore that a little bit. So some of the common mental health challenges and conditions that students face is very prevalent among university students is major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, stress disorder, eating disorder, ADHD, but there's so many more. So they're just some of the top ones. And we're going to go through some of the unique challenges that first generation students are facing. There's different categories for that as well. So first off, multicultural challenges. So stigma is a huge aspect of challenges that students are facing and barriers. So many first generation students are growing up in a multicultural environment. In their home environment, they have one culture on their college campus. They may have a completely different culture. And so this leads to a cultural mismatch on the campus where the norms and the ideals that are valuing independence may conflict with the community-oriented values that many first-generation students have in their home life. So it can feel like they're torn between two environments, so their home environment and their college environment, and it can feel like they're balancing two different worlds, and that can present as a challenge for many students. Another challenge is lack of representation. Many students have reported that they don't feel like they have representation within the staff, and that can feel very isolating, and it makes students feel like they don't have a sense of belonging on campus because they may not have anyone from their cultural background in anywhere in their spaces on campus. So another category for challenges is family. So family expectations and pressures to succeed academically. So this can be a huge stressor for students in um, first generation students. And their families may provide childcare or financial support, but this can also sometimes be a source of stress as well. And socioeconomic status, so students may have financial burdens. Some students may have a part-time or full-time job, and that can present as a huge challenge with navigating their time management, balancing schoolwork versus, working part-time or full-time. And students may have or may not have financial support from their families. So either way, it can be a stressor. So if they do have support from their families, then they feel like a financial burden on their families who may not be able to afford um, supporting them financially during their time at college. But if they don't have any financial support from their families, then it could be another stressor because then they would have to get a part-time or full-time job just to keep up with expenses. So either way, it could be definitely stressful. And then lastly, psychological challenges. So many students may have past traumas, experience past traumas. They may feel um, isolated, feelings of isolation from either their family if they've moved away, or just not feeling like they belong on the campus. So just feeling isolated within the college campus. And lastly, imposter syndrome. Many students have reported feeling like they don't belong or they don't deserve to be where they are or they're not good enough or not smart enough, etc. So imposter syndrome is a huge challenge that many first-gen students have reported. So now we are going to discuss some of the identified barriers. So these barriers have been identified through research as well as surveys that were sent out. So thank you for those students who filled out the surveys. And the re survey results really aligned with the research that I found as well. So it was very interesting to analyze all that. So there's four different categories of barriers. There's practical barriers, psychological barriers, cultural barriers, and some other barriers. So we'll just go through some of those. So first off, practical barriers. Um, One of the biggest responses that I received was challenges with timing. A lot of students feel like they don't have time to go utilize the services that are on campus because they are already having a hard time balancing their schoolwork, assignments, exams, projects, as well as sports, clubs, extracurricular activities, friends, family. There's a lot that they're juggling. So timing is a huge barrier for many students. And and then that leads to scheduling and office hours. There's a lot of students who reported that by the time they are finished with classes and work and do have time, um, the CAPS office is closed already. So they don't really have time between 8:30 and 5 to have an appointment. Additionally, transportation hardships. So not all students have cars. Not all students are able to get onto campus. Not all students are able to easily access the office. So that was definitely something. And then another big one was being unsure about where to go or where to start. So this could be two things. The Not sure where to go, as in physically, like where's the office, not really sure where to find resources, not really sure about the CAPS website or resources that are available on campus. And then another part of that is when you actually get to the therapy appointment, um, not knowing where to start with what you need to discuss because there's so many things that are going on. And lastly, for practical barriers, just various financial reasons. Some students are working to kind of alleviate the financial burden that are on their parents or just surviving on their own. So that can be a huge barrier. But it's worth noting that there are a lot of misconceptions of the cost of on-campus services. It is already included in the health and wellness um, part of your tuition. So it is already paid for. But I think that a lot of students aren't aware of that. And so they think that's going to cost a lot more money to utilize the services on campus. But it's already in the tuition. So it's already been paid for. So the next category, so psychological barriers. Um, with this section, a lot of students have reported feelings of embarrassment. Although mental health is more commonly discussed and it's more open than it used to be, there is still a sense of stigma on the college campus as well as just cultural. environments. So it's not always something that students like to talk about, and so they may feel embarrassed that they need mental health services. So that may be a reason why they're not utilizing the services that are available. Additionally, fear of discrimination. So this could be social discrimination, academic, in their career, even. Some students are worried that they may be mistreated. People will treat them differently for if they knew, if their friends knew, and their colleagues knew that they were in therapy. Again, it is more commonly talked about now, but there still is that stigma. Lastly, something that came up quite a few times was students being afraid that it might harm their school or the professional career. So there is, again, a misconception that utilizing services will end up on their transcripts, or their parents will find out, or their future jobs will find out. But it's all confidential and private, so no one else will know about the services that are being utilized. However, that is a barrier that has come up quite a few times. Okay, and so the next category is cultural barriers. So again, stigma. Stigma is a huge one. Um, a lot of cultures stigmatize mental health, and that has gotten better in some areas, but in other ways it hasn't. So it may just be a cultural norm that mental health isn't discussed. It's not really seen as something that's important. It's not talked about. It's kind of people kind of suffer quietly, and it just really depends on someone's upbringing, whether their parents put any emphasis on mental health or if they shut it down mostly. So that could be a huge factor of why students aren't, or it is a huge factor of why students aren't utilizing services because of family disapprovals, and they're also the first in their family potentially to utilize services or try to seek it out, or discuss it or think about it, address it. So it can be really hard for students who are the very first in their family, maybe it's the eldest child, because they may not know what to do. If it's not talked about, it's not, if it's always been a secret thing, then they just may not know where to begin. They may not have the knowledge behind what kind of services are available, what the university norms and resources are. It may be very challenging in that sense, just not knowing where to begin. And then again, as we had mentioned before, just lack of representation among the staff. There are many students who brought up that they don't feel like there is staff that understand them or relate to their specific problems, maybe culturally. Um, and this can definitely hinder a student from going to receive services if they do and they don't feel like uh, who they're talking to um, can understand them, and that can truly help them with their specific problems. So that's a big thing. And then lastly, for cultural barriers, many first-gen students prefer self-reliance instead of help seeking. This may be because they've always had to do things on their own, and so they've adopted the self-reliance mentality that can definitely get in the way of when they need the services, and they just think, oh, well, I've always figured it out by myself. I don't need I don't need professional services, so what's the point? I'll just figure it out on my own. I'll be fine because I've always done that. So that's definitely a huge barrier. And then some other barriers that don't fit into those other categories that came up a lot are students just want to talk to their friends and their family instead. Many students said, yeah, when I feel stressed, when I feel anxious, when I feel depressed, I just call up my friend, I call up my family, and I will vent about it. So they would prefer that outlet versus getting professional help. Many students think that their problems aren't serious enough. So again, I think there's a misconception that in order to go utilize mental health services, your mental health needs to be really bad, or you need to be really depressed, or really anxious, or really um, just low, maybe have suicidal ideations. That's not necessarily the case, but that is something that has come up a lot. People um, don't think that their problems are serious enough to go seek out help. So then they don't. And again, they just want to handle the problem on their own. And some students um, have identified that they're unsure of the effectiveness of therapy because they tried it once or twice and they just either didn't like it, they didn't think it was helpful, they didn't think that it was worth their time. Um, and this may be the case because they hadn't given it more than a couple tries. But it varies. And so that is something that does come up a lot. It's just the effectiveness of therapy. And then lastly, the barrier is intrinsic motivation and just taking initiative. Students sometimes do know that there's something wrong internally. Sometimes they know they need help. They know that there's mental health services available on campus. They know it'll be beneficial for them, probably make them feel better, but just taking that initiative to seek out the services, go on the website, making an appointment, just that intrinsic motivation is not there, and it's not a priority. So it just it doesn't happen because of motivational reasons. So these are just some of the barriers that came up. Um, and so in order to address these barriers, the idea is to utilize the seven dimensions of wellness to address the barriers. Not all systematic barriers can be addressed necessarily, but there are many things that students can do within themselves in order to kind of address the barriers and focus on their mental health just a little bit more. So, because there is a high desire to handle problems on their own, students having mental health literacy is really important in addressing these systematic barriers because maybe we can't change the hours of the therapy services, but we can look at just focusing on our mental health in a different way that we previously have. So I think focusing on just wellness in general is really important. Wellness is defined as the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. So this is a very personal pursuit. There is a self-responsibility for our own choices, our behaviors, our lifestyles. And so we really have to be the ones to go take initiative, and that is one of the barriers, but unfortunately that is something that we just have to do on our own when the time is right, and maybe just having a mindset shift about mental health in general and services. It is significantly influenced by our physical, social, and cultural environment, so those barriers should not be minimized, and they're very much they're alive and they're real barriers for students. But there are other things that we can do around that we can control. And so the seven dimensions of wellness is a holistic framework that puts focus on the multitude of factors that contribute to one's health and wellness. So I think that focusing on the dimensions of wellness can address some of the barriers students are facing in utilizing mental health services. So the seven dimensions that we'll be focusing on in the next couple slides. And we'll also be having a series of seven workshops once per week to address each of these dimensions. So they're physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, environmental, and occupational. So a balance of all of these dimensions leads to a fuller, healthier, and satisfying life. So that's the idea of using the seven dimensions of wellness. So we'll just go through each of them a little bit. The first one is physical wellness. So, physical wellness is caring for your body and giving it what it needs to stay healthy. So, this could be achieved through regular exercise, nutrition, just having healthy meals, having healthy snacks, sleep, having enough sleep and proper sleep hygiene is really important for your mental health and your role as a student. And then, very importantly, rest. Not a lot of students like to put a lot of emphasis on rest because obviously we're in college, you have a lot to do, a lot of things to balance, but rest is really, really important for your well-being overall, and your mental health. So, how physical wellness can address the barrier of mental health is just kind of realizing that physical health is very much intertwined with your mental health. There are many students who kind of prioritize physical self-care, like going to the gym, over mental self-care because it's more culturally acceptable. It's more of a cultural norm. So just kind of having, again, a mindset shift about that physical health will help your mental health, and vice versa. So it's all very interconnected. Um, so accessibility, just having the physical accessibility and transportation, fatigue, energy levels, like these are all really important factors in order to, um, go utilize these services. Like if you have low energy levels and you're tired all the time, the chances are you're not going to want to take time and energy to go um, utilize services because you're already tired and you already have all these things you need to do, and maybe getting to it may be inconvenient. Although they do have virtual sessions, so you don't have to go anywhere physically, but if that was what you're into, yeah, just physically getting to CAPS or the care team. And then just prevention, exercise, sleep, early detection. These are all things that are really important in terms of prevention. If you focus on exercise, you get enough sleep, you're able to detect any changes, then that'll help your mental health, in return. So it's all, again, very connected. Okay. So next up, emotional wellness. So emotional wellness is being aware of understanding, accepting, respecting, and expressing your feelings, your values, and your attitudes. So it's understanding and appreciating the feelings of others as well, managing your emotions in a constructive way, feeling positive and enthusiastic about your life. So emotional wellness obviously is very much there with mental health. Yeah, so emotional wellness is one of the big ones for sure. So how emotional wellness can address the barriers is, by increasing your self-awareness, which is really, it's essential for accessing mental health services and resources. The more self-aware you are, the more in tune with your emotions you are. Um, you know, just learning coping with stress, with anxiety, imposter syndromes, emotional awareness, all of these things, emotional regulation. These are all things that will help you get to the mental health services, but also those mental health services can help you with self-awareness and with emotional awareness and regulating your emotions and anxiety and imposter syndrome. So again, it's all very much intertwined and one impacts the other. Um, yeah, and also just I put this in bold because it's really important, but silently suffering causes more harm overall and it prolongs the healing process. So if you are feeling um anything really like depressed, anxious, stressed, if you have any challenges, um it's better to address them while it's manageable because if you don't, then it can get worse and then there can be a lot of negative impacts with that. Also, like I mentioned before, these services are all in your tuition, so it's already paid for. Once you graduate, then if you don't take care of your mental health now, you most likely will have to after college, where therapy is a lot more expensive. And not as easily accessible as it is on our college campuses where we have all of these resources and people there who genuinely want to help. You know? Yeah, so emotional wellness is a big one for sure. Okay, next one, social wellness. So social wellness is connecting and engaging with others, and our community in meaningful ways. This is maintaining healthy relationships, enjoying being with others, developing friendships and intimate relationships. This is caring for others and letting others care about you. This can be achieved by communication and healthy relationships, either in your classes, on campus, off campus, wherever it may be. Just healthy social relationships is really important. And so, a balance of interdependency among ourselves, our family, our friends is really, really important for your mental health. And I feel like it's not as emphasized a lot of times with mental health or just wellness in general, but it is just realizing that the need for fun and leisure time to connect with people is really, really important for your mental health and just developing a sense of connection, of belonging, and a support system can go a really long way with your mental health and also just your mentality about mental health and which will lead to utilizing it, you know? So social wellness can help address the barriers because cultivating connections combats isolation and helps students feel safe enough to bring up their mental health with their peers and seek services. So if someone feels like in their friend group they're able to discuss mental health and you guys can connect on it and relate to one another or feel safe with one another, then you're more likely to just minimize the taboo and the stigma that's attached to it. But if you're surrounded by people who um, don't have anything positive to say about mental well-being or look down upon services or um, just are not supportive in that way, then it can be really hard for students to bring it up or even address the services that or address the problems that they have with the services that are available to them because their social circles um, are not supportive in that way. And that kind of leads us to parent education. There are, like we had mentioned earlier, some of the unique challenges and the barriers that many students have is not having supportive parents in terms of mental health. And it can be a huge, huge barrier. And people can turn away from mental health completely. And it could be something as easy as parent education if their social connections and their family understands and what they're going through and what mental health is and what services are and all that, that could play a major role in a student's comfort levels of accessing help. So that's definitely a big one. Okay, spiritual wellness. Spiritual wellness is an interesting one. So this is finding purpose, value, and meaning in your life with or without organized religion. So spirituality is not just religion based. It is searching for meaning and a higher purpose in one's existence. So that could be religion or it could not be. This is achieved by participating in activities that are consistent with your beliefs and your values, and just the appreciation of life and discovery of your spiritual self and what that means to you. Um, so how this can address the barriers, a lot of first-gen students come from communities where spirituality or religion play a major role. There are many, religious cultures or cultures that have a lot of value in religion. So that may be the mentality that's coming in, which is great. I think that religion can be very beneficial for some people, not everyone, obviously, but for people. But bridging the cultural gap can also help offer other ways of healing. So they can be very interconnected. Just be so like some students would say, um, I don't need mental health services, I'm gonna just pray about it. So that's not to say that you can do both. You know, you can um, turn to religion if that's what helps. But also mental health services can also help and they can be they can align, like your cultural and spiritual values can align with mental health services. So it doesn't necessarily need to be one or the other. So spiritual wellness is definitely an interesting one for students and just what that means in general, because I think there's a huge misconception about that as well. Okay, next up we have intellectual wellness. So intellectual wellness is engaging the world through learning, problem solving, creativity, etc. It's growing intellectually, maintaining curiosity about all that there's to learn, valuing lifelong learning, and responding positively to intellectual challenges. So we are on a college campus, so um, I think there's a lot of value in intellectual wellness, especially during this time. Um, so expanding your knowledge, you're already in school, you're already learning about all these things. So why not learn about mental health as well? And it could be something that can benefit you, it could benefit someone else that you know. Like every person ha at some point will have mental health challenges. So if you kind of frame it in the way of wanting to learn as much as you can because this information will be very helpful. And just expanding your knowledge about mental health will help you get to the services, and just make yourself feel better and just know what is going on. So intellectual wellness can address the barrier by understanding mental health from an educational perspective can reduce the stigma. If you like science, all of this is very science-based. Education on mental health conditions and the signs and symptoms, and you know what to look for. Sometimes students or just people in general will have will have experiences, will have feelings, but they aren't able to identify it. They don't know what they're looking for. They know something's wrong, but they can't necessarily tell you what it is. So they'll start listing, if they go talk to someone, they'll say, I don't have depression, but they'll start listing all depression symptoms. So a little bit of education on that can go a long way. And then, so skill development and self-advocacy, this kind of leads into that, where the more that you know, the more skilled you are in the sense, and the more you know what to do, the more you're able to advocate for yourself and what you need. So, because you'll be aware of what's out there, and seeking that knowledge is going to be the biggest thing for you. And so just promoting critical thinking and just empowerment to speak up and initiate seeking help. Is that initiation piece again? The more that you know, the more that you can do. So this is a huge one as well, sure. Okay, and then almost done, just two more dimensions. Um, so this next one is environmental wellness. This is occupying pleasant, safe, and stimulating environments that support your well-being. So this is understanding how your social, natural, and built environments affects your health and your well-being. So this can be achieved by proactive engagement and contribution towards healthier and safer environments. So that can be your friend circle, that could be your dorm, your apartment, your campus life, um, you're just any environment that you're in, just wanting that to be a safe, and stimulating space. So addressing the barrier, if you live in an unsafe and unstimulating environment, this just knowing that that can contribute to your mental distress, and just being able to identify those spaces that you're living in, it can it can be a huge I don't know how to phrase this, but it could definitely help with knowing how to help yourself if you can identify your surroundings pretty much. And so seeking supportive and stigma-free spaces helps your mental wellness. Um, we have control of what spaces that we're in. I mean, for the most part. So make sure that it's something that's good for your mental well-being. And this is very connected to the social wellness as well, because you want to have a safe environment with safe people, um, because that's gonna make a huge impact on your mental health in general. And so also, just accessibility. So we touched upon this a little bit before, but just location, inclusivity, campus safety, and just ease of access. Um, we are on this college campus, and there is a lot of spaces that are very inclusive and that are safe, TRIO being one of them, the care team being one of them, CAPS being one of them. Um, you know, there is a lot of resources out there, and there could be some spaces that are not very safe and are stigmatized, but knowing what that is can help you know where you should be and what to avoid. Yeah. Okay. And so the last dimension of wellness is occupational wellness. This is preparing for and participating in work or studies that provide personal satisfaction and life enrichment that is consistent with your values, your goals, and your lifestyle. So this is achieved through balancing work and leisure by contributing their knowledge, their skills, characteristics towards roles and responsibilities. So you're a student right now, that's your current occupation, or you're maybe working on the side, that is another occupation. So just making sure that what you're doing is aligning with what you're interested in, what you love, what your values are, what's important to you, what your goals are. Hopefully you are majoring in something that is meaningful to you, that you're interested in, and not what someone wants you to. And so how occupational wellness can address the barriers. Sometimes first gen students feel the need to succeed and support their families. I mean, research shows that that is one of the motivating factors for first gen students. Um, and so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be very stressful, and that stress can negatively impact someone's mental health, or just their priorities in seeking support. So there could be a lot of pressure to succeed and stay focused, and so that mental health will probably not be on the forefront of their minds because they would rather just study or work or do whatever they need to do for their families. Secondly, skill development. So time management skills and organization skills are really important, and that falls really neatly into occupational wellness. If you remember earlier in the presentation, I had mentioned that some students said that time management is really hard, or just finding time for mental health services was hard, but with a little bit of time management skills and organizational skills, you'll find that it is a lot easier to have like a quick Zoom conversation with a therapist or a care team in person even. Um, so it's just about time management, really. And lastly, balancing academics, work, and personal life affects the ability to manage stress and seek support. So we have a lot going on in our lives. We are balancing a lot. Um, and so again, being able to manage your time, manage your stress, manage your mental health, all of that is going to be really important. Also, for another misconception, I know I've said this quite a bit, but if you go utilize mental health services, it doesn't always necessarily need to be, I'm sad, so I need to go talk to a therapist about sadness. It could be, I'm feeling very overwhelmed, I'm feeling very stressed, I don't know how to manage my time correctly, I need help developing this organizational skill. That can definitely be the priority of a therapy session. A counselor can help you manage your time or learn or give you strategies and tools of balancing everything that you have to do with school, with work, with your personal life, with your family, with your sports. That is a lot for anyone to do. So, um, yeah, just something to keep in mind. It's these are things that mental health services can also help you with. Yeah. And so that brings us to available resources. So I just want to put this information out here that the CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, they have a lot of different services available. So there's individualized therapy, there's even group therapy, there's relationship therapy. So if you are UOP students, but your partner is not, that's fine. It just has to be one of you. Um, Psychiatric, so having medication management services. So all of these typically require appointments, but there are also crisis and emergency therapy. So there's suicide and crisis hotlines that are easy to call or text, or a crisis text line. Um, and also, so I have the address and the appointment number um, for in-person and virtual appointments, but there's also the 24/7 support. So sometimes students they've mentioned that they want to they want to call, but there's never any appointments, or if the appointments are in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever. But there's this 24/7 line. If you need to speak to someone immediately and just get something off your chest, there is a confidential, private, secure 24/7 support that you can call at any time. So I don't know if a lot of students know about that, but that service is there. And then the next one is the care team. So there are care management managers on campus that are specifically there to help assist students navigate a wide range of issues and challenges. So some of the examples that care of things that care managers can assist with are family or personal challenges, medical concerns, financial challenges, hardships, relationship conflicts, housing needs, food insecurity, trouble accessing basic needs like toiletries, diapers, cleaning supplies, etc., and just general adjustment or connection at Pacific. And so I have their address here as well, and their phone number and email. They are um, they're available. They're waiting for students to come seek help. So there is a lot of resources there to use. Yeah. And so thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope it was informative, just a little bit or more, but I really appreciate it. I do have the schedule for the upcoming workshop. So it'll be one workshop a week for the next 7 weeks. And we'll just be discussing the different dimensions of wellness that we just talked about and break down what it means, what we can do. There'll also be a self-care menu. So as you show up to each week, you can kind of write down um, just different strategies that you're learning in these workshops so that when you are going through a mental health episode, then maybe you can turn to your self-care menu and you'll know how to manage those better. So I hope everyone can join. You can scan the QR code and the Zoom meeting ID numbers on here as well. So I hope I'll see everyone there. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Take care.